This is the daily writing recorded, day 58, Octavia, Ferra. "10 days had passed since the event. "I don't suppose you have an answer?" Edward asked. "I don't suppose I do," Octavia replied. She turned her head away from Edward and smiled at her cousin, observing them from the edge of the circle that had formed around the dancing pair. Edward chuckled. "Wonderful," he said. "I suppose," he mused out loud, "that we'll be the first of the unhappy of our generation." "How so?" Octavia asked, through her put-upon smile. "I am perfectly happy with the arrangement." Edward cast his eyes coolly down at Octavia. Octavia briefly stared into his eyes before drawing them away to the far side of the ballroom. There they rested upon the orchestra, which was situated upon a platform, playing an old familiar waltz she had heard hundreds of times before, desperately longing for it all to come to an end. "If I did not know better," Edward said, following Octavia's eyes to the orchestra, "one could fall for such pretty eyes and languished tones." "Whatever do you speak of?" Octavia replied tiredly. "I look forward to being your wife, as much as I assume you look forward to being my husband." Edward smiled and resisted the urge to spring into a convulsive laugh. It took him a moment to control himself, during which Octavia took it upon herself to lead the dance. "You see," she said, "how easy things can be when you understand the proper way of things." Edward sighed softly. He looked down upon Octavia's face, his smile melting within its sight. "Look at me," he commanded sternly. Octavia ignored him. "Look at me," Edward repeated slowly. Octavia smiled to the crowd around as she naturally turned her face from one side to the other, before slowly turning it back and landing softly upon Edward's darkening face. Edward stared deeply into her eyes, his face blank, his mouth quivering into action. He moved his face closer to hers before he began to speak, their lips almost touching. "I swear," he whispered, "that before all this is done, once you have fulfilled your wifely duties and given me my heir, once I am good and done with you, I swear upon all that is unholy, that I will wrap my hands around your harpy neck and never so gently squeeze the life out of them, so that the last image that will accompany you to your final destination in hell will be my satisfied face." Octavia continued to stare into his eyes until he was done speaking, and smiled throughout it all. "Oh, my dear boy," she sighed. "You need me for a lifetime. I only need you for one night." "You'll need me for just as long as I need you," Edward venomously reminded her. "Your threat means nothing to me, not until the child is born." "Yes," Octavia said. "And when will that be?" Edward frowned. "It will be whenever I say it will be, woman. My seed is strong, and you will have no choice but to take it. It being our wedding night, after all." "And I will do so as eager and dutiful as any other wife," Octavia said, with a throwl of mockery in her voice. "Do you think I care for your opinion on this matter?" Edward asked. "You will spread your legs, I will give you my seed, and you will give me my son." Octavia jerked her head back and laughed heartedly. "Ah," she said, "but isn't that the tragedy of it all? I will give you your son, your precious heir. But not just yet. Not until I have given you many, many daughters, and you are upon your knees begging me to deliver you from your shameful existence. Then, and only then, shall I deliver a son unto you. But you, of course, will never get to see him be born. For that is my price, your life for his." The music ended. The dancing stopped. Octavia and Edward stared into each other's eyes, their minds set to work on their next response. Edward took Octavia's hand and kissed it gently. He then interlocked her arm with his and guided her off the floor, to join the others in observing the new batch of dancers. "So, we shall both die," he surmised. "Perhaps," Octavia said. "But once the son is born, what need is there for the father? The mother, on the other hand, could be replaced by a nursemaid and a governess," Edward said rapidly. "Perhaps," Octavia mused. but not a mother's love, or the love a son has for his mother. Or for his father, Edward added. Octavia chuckled. What love? He will revenge me, Edward said. It is not love that will make him do so, Octavia lectured. Duty will compel him to seek revenge, but love will ensure he'll find forgiveness in his heart. Edward ran his fingers along his neck. Then I suppose, he said, you leave me with little choice. Either I kill you here and now, or, Octavia said. Edward turned towards her. He grabbed her chin and lifted it up and stared into her eyes. Or I'll have to make you love me instead. I'll make you love me so much that when I tear it away, you'll find no other option as desirable than to take your own life. Octavia smiled. I cannot wait. She closed her eyes and leaned in. Edward ran his thumb along her lips and leaned in himself, his eyes ever open as her lips briefly touched, and a bond was formed. No more was written or recorded. Thank you for listening. Good night.